Welcome to Eyes and Teeth, Funny for Money. Andy Ford, the comedian, he's so surreal, but he stands out because he's got a character. He's got a character that's lovable. People believe that character because Andy believes that character. More surreal comedians like Stephen Wright in America or Steve Martin in the States. Here's a quote from Steve Martin. Comedy is the ability to make people laugh without making them puke. In an interview with a book by John Hind, Conversations with Great Comedians, The Comic Inquisition, Steve Martin, aged 44, dresses cleanly and crisply in expensive casuals. Who were your comic heroes as a child? When I was a child, I loved Laurel and Hardy. I went to the cinema all the time. I'd see funny guys like them and think, wow, wouldn't that be fun to do? I never thought of the business side. I just thought about being funny. Laurel and Hardy meant a great deal to me. They're always considered as slapstick merchants, but you only have to look at the detail. And Jerry Lewis, too, was a great influence. I enjoyed the stupidity and the athletics, the commotion. I didn't think of them as actors then. I thought it was really them. What are your happiest childhood memories? Dying of laughter with friends. When was the last time you were depressed? Now. Do you criticize yourself a lot? All the time. Do you ever have self-doubts? All the time. You know you're only as good as your last joke, but you just keep on going along. It's good to be surreal, but underneath it all, we're all human. So let's get to know Andy Ford. Andy Ford is a unique comedy star who has graced the stages of TV, theatre, pantomime and carries his West Country accent all over the UK and delivers that fine reward of laughter, whether it's toddlers or OAPs, everyone in between. He spreads smiles through his work and is so giving to his fans. In pantomime, Andy has worked with the best in the business and builds his fan bases beyond these venues. Today, Andy and I talk about his theatre tours, including playing Adge Cutler, the frontman and founder of the Wurzels, in a great new hit musical. And if you are visiting the West Country, check out the Adge Cutler statue. You realise how big this icon was. Andy loves this business so much, and he doesn't mind sharing the falls as well as the climbs, his passions and experiences from caravan parks to the Royal Variety performance. His story is one to enjoy. Welcome to Eyes and Teeth, Andy Ford. Warwick Davis said of Andy Ford is pantomime. Dame Barbara Windsor said he's my favourite comedian. Matt Lucas, Andy Ford is just about the funniest man alive. And Des O'Connor, CBE, Andy Ford, I think he's wonderful. Steve Hewlett says, I think he's wonderful, hilarious, and one of the most original, unique comedians of our time. Andy Ford, welcome to Eyes and Teeth.
Hello, Matt. I don't know if I can follow that. Good night, everybody.
Good night. Mate, you've made yourself known within this business, and we love you wherever you go. You build audiences, you build fan bases, and you build fan bases within the business, you know, and it's just your aura. You've got this aura about you, which is just so lovable, you know. And so I'd like to get to know Andy Ford as way before I did meet you. You started at a very young age, and you got your first paid gig when you were 12. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Well, I'd always loved the lure of the stage. I mean, for example, when I was about 4 or 5 and went to the infant school in Whipton and Exeter, if it was raining, say we were all in the playground playing at playtime, and if it was raining, the dinner ladies would put us all into the school hall. Yes. And plonk me on stage, and I'd entertain the other kids. I've no idea what I actually did. I obviously had a complete love for it then. I think the only thing I can remember is singing Tommy Steele's Little White Bull and running around and being silly. But that was the age of 5, so I mean, that's not taught. That was there when I arrived, I think. So from then, you know, and I do things like, you know, shows in the garden, Steve. I don't know if you used to do that to entertain parents.
I did, yeah. I used to charge people 10p to look over the fence and see my little ventriloquist shows.
You see, that's why you've got money and I haven't.
Well, I haven't got it
And
now.
I was in the church choir. I was head choir boy, and with my cousin Stephen, we entered all the talent contests. And then I think about the age of 10, my uncle got me a banjo. And my parents,
Wow.
they didn't have any dosh or anything,
No.
but there was a guy in the choir that played guitar and banjo and stuff, so they paid for me to have lessons with him.
Oh, amazing.
And within 2 years of that, and my dad, when other kids were going to the disco on a Monday night to meet girls, I was sitting in a bedroom and my dad was singing me the old songs, and I was learning how to play them. And from the age of 12, I did my first gig. Well, I'll tell you how it happened. My dad was a postman, and on Christmas Eve, they would just do one delivery, and all the postmen would go to a club and have a drink and a sing-song.
Oh, nice.
Before Christmas. And there was a lovely guy there called Les Chadwick, who used to bring his guitar, and everyone sang along with him. And he said to him, Dad, get your son to bring his banjo, let him join in, which, the most exciting thing ever. So I did that. I think they had a whip round, so I got a couple of drinks out of it. Obviously, soft drinks at the age of 12.
Yeah.
And the guy that runs the club, the social secretary, I think they call them,
Yes.
watched it and said, do you want to do a show for us tonight? And I said, yeah. And I got paid £3 in the evening, rebooking. And that was my first official gig, and sort of haven't looked back, really.
Oh, that's amazing. When did you form your own band called Choosy? Is that right? Was it a band you were in?
Yeah, I'm back. Well, what happened was at the age of, I think it was 15.
Okay.
I joined a trio called the Harry Brown Trio, and they played at the holiday camps at Dawlish Warren and at Golden Sands, I think it was something like that.
Yeah.
And so I joined them. A year later, there was an audition for a famous band in Exeter called the Vic Palmer Combo, who did all the functions and everything.
Yes.
So my dad got on the bus with me, and I went for the audition in Exeter, and at the age of 16, I became their lead singer of a dance band.
Wow.
And all the other musicians in the band were a lot older than me, so I was sort of pushed to the front and, told to move, and I learned how to present that way,
Yes.
really. And then after a while, I suppose, like everyone, you start thinking, well, I could do this.
Yes.
So at the age of, I think it was about 20, I formed my own band called Tuesday. We did a few bits and pieces, bit of tally, toured the Northeast clubs.
Amazing.
Survived somehow. So yeah, there's all that. I don't think you can do what you do in this business without all that grounding stuff, really, Steve.
No, definitely. The clubs, the holiday parks, it builds up to something spectacular in the end if you put your heart into it. And so Choosy come a little bit later. You were around your 20s. Now, I've seen a couple of photographs of you. You got some great biogs and photos on your website, Andy, but that you don't look too dissimilar, and I wouldn't be surprised if you were adopted out of the Osmonds family when you were in the 70s. So what is this Osmond look? You've got the same hair, the same teeth. It's amazing.
Well, I obviously I thought I was an Osmond, didn't I, at the time? Because I was singing, I was the lead singer, I was the youngest in the band, and the Osmonds and Davy Cassidy and all of that lot were massive at the time.
Did you cover their stuff?
Yeah, I think we did. A few of them, not loads, because when you're in a dance band, you've still got to do your fair share of the barn dance and waltzes and quick steps, as well as the pop music of the day. So that was, that was great grounding as well. But yeah, I think obviously I'd had a bit of an ego and wanted the girls to fancy me. Listen to this. We did a village hall once, and it was a place we'd done a few times, and I was getting a bit of a following with the girls. I think I was about 17, 18 anyway. I thought I was the bee's knees, so I had this fur coat on. It was probably the summer, and there's probably no need for it, but I thought it looked really cool. And so they bounded a drink in the pub, and we came outside, and there were girls waiting, and I heard, it's Andy Ford. So, trying to look confident, I walked towards them, missed the edge of the pavement, went flat on my face, ripped my jeans, cut my leg open, and they're now all innocent. You know what they say? The higher they climb. I deserve that.
Oh, bless you. Oh, and you never look back.
I was saying to someone the other day, because you know I do my podcast thing, my happy chat. Saying to
Yes.
someone the other day that you can learn as much when things go wrong as you can when they go well. And I learned from that 100%. I was only 17, and that sort of brought me down to earth. Do you drop? Stop being a poser.
And you've scuffled your fur coat. That's a shame. But it's
I love that coat.
you really do learn from these experiences. Like it's like every comic has to go out there and die on your backside. You can't become the comic that you want to be unless you have them struggles. You know, you need to have them bad nights to appreciate the amazing nights. You know, and everyone has them. You know, it's just them.
Completely.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, I mean, a lot of those nights when it goes wrong, you know, can be down to the comic learning his trade and hasn't got it. But circumstance can also, you know, cause you to be in a venue where people can't hear, can't see, they're not really interested, they're waiting for the raffle, they're waiting for the bingo. There's loads of stuff that can affect the attention span of the audience, and you can have no chance. But at the same time, you learn that those aren't the sort of gig. I mean, I went through a phase where I was struggling in a couple of situations, and I said to the agent, "Don't put me on them, because if I don't go well, that's bad for you, that's bad for me, and it's bad for the club."
Yeah.
So, you know, if the situation's right, it's a nice stage, nice PA. People, what I found as I've got older in the business, Steve, is people will give you more respect if they pay for a ticket.
Yeah, yes. Yeah, we've learnt that, haven't we, since?
Yeah, and also, you know, since I've been very lucky at the successes in Panto, people that like me that want to come back and see my own show, they're buying a ticket because it's my name on the poster.
I know,
So
it's amazing.
when you're in that situation, I mean, you can still have occasional nights that aren't through the roof, but if people have committed to pay a ticket because it's you got a pretty good chance of having a good night, haven't you?
Yeah, definitely. And I've shared those nights with you. We've done about 4 or 5 in the past, a couple of club gigs, but the theatre gigs at the Bristol Hippodrome. And I thank you for them gigs, mate, because they're wonderful, because you fill so much of those theatres, and the audience is so with you. There's families there, there's young couples, older couples, whole families, grandparents next to kids. The kids are giggling, belly laughing at you, as well as the grandparents. It's amazing to see an entertainer loved as much as you are, you know, with you are a Joe Pasquale, a Billy Pearce, you know, the whole family can enjoy you.
Well, the thing is, I mean, the power of Panto, I mean, we always knock on about Panto because I love it, is that you learn pretty early on, so you got no choice. You learn how to keep an audience with varying demographics interested. I mean, the kids aren't going to get the tag of a gag with a bit of innuendo on it, but as you deliver it in a silly, physically funny way, and maybe trip at the end of it. Yes. The kids got that to laugh at, and the adults got the other thing to laugh at. So those are skills that you can't learn in a comedy club, really.
No, definitely. It's mainly in the visual faces that you pull within your punchlines, and just moving on to the next one. You know, if they don't get one, then another one's coming right after it, and it's brilliant like that.
Exactly. I mean, that's the other comedians' skill set, isn't it? That you learn if something doesn't work, you don't just leave it and start another gag. You do. I mean, I've seen Eddie Izzard do stuff like that as well. If something don't work, he'll put it right into his hand like he's got a notebook. Never do that again. The audience laugh. Well, what they don't know is he's just saved that last gag, kept the momentum up, so they're in the departure lounge ready to laugh at the next one. So those are skill sets that comedians learn. Never, I mean, there's that fine line, isn't there, between doing a gag, giving them time to laugh, because Jethro always said to me he hated the idea that a comedian would do a tag and then say something afterwards that the audience might listen to when they should just be reacting to the tag. So there's that, making it clean cut so people just laugh at what you said.
Yeah.
And there's also the other side of it, that if that tag doesn't work, that you have to be like a coiled spring, ready to push it forward to the next guy and keep the momentum up. Momentum's important in sport, and it's really important in comedy. You have to keep them interested and waiting for the next thing.
Ice and Teeth.
I met you in 1997 first. We'll get to this TV show, but between your age 20 and getting to the big talent show, what did you do in between that time? Was it the grafting and the groundwork?
Well, I ran a couple of holiday camps. I lived in Exmouth at the time.
Okay.
And there's a place called Ladram Bay. Well, I got a gig there in a little shed. And they'd never seen anything like it, because the skills I'd learned with the bands meant I could speak to the audience as well as sing the songs.
Yes.
And I'd be on PA and guitar and all that. So they invited me back. And the bosses there said, would you like to run our summer season? So I said, yeah, but it needs to be more than just entertainers coming in. I think you need a daytime red coat, blue coat type scenario, which we call green coats.
Okay.
And I set the whole thing up, and I ran Ladram Bay and performed there for 10 years, and they bought another site called Shalibra Bay near Big Breen, near Plymouth.
Yeah, I've done that.
And I ran that for 4 years. So,
okay.
And I was, at the same time as running them, I was trying to make money, so I was writing songs and stories about Ollie the Otter, which was the kiddies club that I started.
Okay.
And well, I suppose that was all the training for eventually going into the big pantos, really.
Yes.
So yeah, I never stopped grafting, mate. I did 6 nights a week, sometimes in the height of the summer, 7 nights a week, for about 10 years.
Oh, that's amazing.
Well, a bit quieter, obviously, after Christmas, like February, March, but as soon as Easter kicked in, I was there right through until nearly November.
And so I guess that's where you built up the comedy act, and you left them and started to do the comedy on its own, really, didn't you? And dropped the songs. You do add a few comedy songs within your repertoire, but you're now Andy Ford the comic. So when was that born? When did you go full comedy?
Well, I don't think, there's not a cut-off point. I think basically when I was entertainment manager of these venues,
yes,
I was trying it gradually, bit by bit,
okay,
until I had enough for that. And then in June 1991, I met Michelle.
Oh.
And she said to me, because she was stage managing another act. This was at St Ives in Cornwall, a holiday venue.
Yeah.
And she came to see my show, and afterwards she said, do you like doing those jokes? And I said, well, not particularly. She said, well, let me ask you this. Do you think they're funny?
Is she still saying this?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I said, well, not particularly, but everyone does them. They work. Everyone does them on the circuit. She said, well, I've got an idea. Why don't you, instead of dressing in a tuxedo like a 50-year-old man at the age of 34 and doing gags, which nowadays people are going to start feeling are not PC and dated,
yes,
why don't you wear what you want? Why don't you do the jokes that you want and be the performer that you want? And I thought, flipping heck. No one's ever said that to me before.
That's amazing.
So
yeah.
I recreated everything, and I got no work for 2 years. all the agents said, we can't book you. You used to be safe. We used to know that people would laugh at the gags and da-da-da. So I went out on a limb and suffered. Well, I say I suffered for it, but a couple of years down the line, I then started thinking, well, I do believe it. I believe in this character. I think he's funny. He's slightly surreal, but I think he's funny. And I did an audition and got on the big talent show, and then the big moment, I worked with you.
Yeah, so we're now at 1997, and bless Michelle for having that belief and that vision of you actually being Andy Ford the comic, the character, because it is such a great, lovable, wonderful character, and so that's lovely that Michelle would see that, and so you've now entered quite a big talent show at the time, because it was the only one going. It was in between New Faces and the beginning of Britain's Got Talent, so there was an open market for it. So the big talent show.
It wasn't my first TV one. I did a talent show called The Fang Gang.
Oh, okay.
Granada, and I was on an episode with Carolina Ahern.
Wow, yes.
She was dressed as a nun doing her spot, and I did 2 weeks on it. I sort of survived. It was a thing where you had a hook on the comedians,
oh, yeah.
and people pressed the hook when they wanted to get rid of it. It was hosted by Tim Brooke Taylor and Stan Boardman.
Amazing.
Yeah, and I did that, and I did okay on it. I didn't. Barnaby, I think Barnaby might have been on it.
Okay.
As well.
Yes.
And so it was good. I learned a little bit. Well, I learned a lot about television quickly, so that when the big talent show opportunity came around, I was performing different material by then, because I'd gone through this, rediscovery thing. And when I did the big talent show, I think I was just ready to do it, really.
Yeah. You've had the experience, and you know when you're ready, don't you? And
yeah.
When I did it, because I worked on this show with you, I wasn't ready, and I know that now. And you kind of look back and think, the people around me were probably right. Gary Bushell was right, and I've told him since he was right, because I had a bit of a tough one on there. I was in your heat of the same show.
That's right.
I remember sitting there watching your rehearsals and just laughing so much. I remember your recording. We had such a great day. Did you go to the after show party?
Yeah, I did, with Jonathan Ross and all that.
Yeah, I don't know if you remember this, but my nan was there, because she was in the audience. So my nan came to the after show party with my mum. And Jonathan Ross got up on a table and went, "Right, everybody, we've all got to get out of the building, so why don't you just off?" Right? And my nan doesn't like swearing, so she said, "Oi, Mr. Ross, you don't swear like that." And my nan chased him off the table and around the room. It was hilarious.
Was that your nan?
That was my nan, yeah.
Fantastic.
She told him off. But this is the first day that me and you met, so I have fond memories of this gig. What was it like for you? Because Gary Bushell loved you. He took a really nice liking to you and gave you great reviews. And it opened a lot of doors, didn't it, this show?
Well, that show got me the Royal Variety performance.
Yes, amazing.
That night that I did it, because people think I was on that series a lot. They just liked what I did and kept showing bits of it every week.
Yeah.
Even in the final week, they showed Gary Bushell's favourite artists of the run, and there I was again. So I was on it about 3 or 4 times, and I did the Royal Variety show, which was just the best thing, and to meet the Queen and everything. It was lovely, and I met Joe Pasquale. There was a lovely boy. But because the show overran, I think Michael Bolton did too much, Celine Dion. Anyway, it overran.
Yeah.
And Stephen Mulhern and myself didn't make the cut for TV. That's
so awful that they do that sometimes. It's quite renowned, isn't it? They actually.
Yeah, I understand it, because the show was running. And to be honest, I was all right, but if I'd have ripped the place sideways, I'd have been on. You know what I mean? I did okay, but I didn't tear down any buildings. So when we had to lose stuff, I mean, you take it from a talent show, don't you? You can't cut the stars back.
Yeah, of course.
So I learned a lot, and I mean, it was tough on Steve as well, but I haven't really held him back, has it? He's doing all right.
We don't stop, do we? Not when we got the passion inside us, and so. But you've got the photograph. It's a lovely photograph of you meeting the Queen at the lineup, with Stephen, and you've done it, mate. You've done it. You've done it. I've still got that dream in the back of my mind. But it's amazing that you got that, and I remember that they were picking a couple of the big talent show acts to actually perform on the show. And Lydia Griffiths, who was on our heat, she won the whole series, didn't she? And in '97, but the year before was won by Paul Zerdin. So
yeah, that's right. Lovely Paul. I worked with him up in somewhere, Blackpool. Well, I didn't work with him, but I met him. I was on the Frank Carson show at Central Pier, and Pasquale was at the Grand. Is it the Grand in Blackpool?
Yeah, lovely,
I
lovely.
think Paul Zerden was doing
Paradise.
possibly
Pleasure
the
Beach.
Pleasure Beach.
That's it, yes. I remember that because I went to see Paul do his show, and I went to see Joe Pasquale, and I went to see you on, was it the Central Pier? You doing your own show? I remember seeing you that year. Was it 98?
Yeah, it was. It's the year I got my first Des O'Connor show.
Amazing. And so Des O'Connor comes along. He loves you as well. And this is so great to see you on the couch and later in Des and Mel. So what was it about Des, bless him? Was it?
He was the best thing for my career. I mean, but he hosted the Royal Variety Show that eventually Stephen Mulhern and I did,
Oh,
were
wow.
on the cutting room floor when it went on the telly. And he was horrified about this because he loved what I did.
Yes.
And I remember I was quite depressed. I was in Bournemouth for a panto that year, and my manager couldn't even ring me to tell me that I wasn't going to make the final cut. It was down to my wife, and I'm in Dick somewhere. And yeah, there was a tear, and I thought, well, it's all gone now. And anyway, so I did the panto, loved the panto, worked with some wonderful people in Bournemouth. And during the run, someone brought me in a paper and said, look, Bob Monkhouse is talking about you. And it was, I think it was The Sun, and Gary Bushell was saying, he was talking about Monkhouse and the future of comedy. Bob Monkhouse said, there's a great guy called Andy Ford. He's been on the talent show recently. I think he's got a big future in the business. And I thought, maybe it's not all over. And
Nice.
the next year, I was in Blackpool, as we said, with Frank, and the associate producer of Des O'Connor's show, because we'd written to Des O'Connor's show, because Des had said it to Steve Wright in the afternoon. He said that Andy Ford was great, seen him on the talent show, and was going to have him on the show, and nothing happened. So we'd contacted Des O'Connor's show and heard everything. Anyway, so this summer that we're all in Blackpool, the associate producer comes up to look at Johnny Casson.
Okay, yeah.
He
Lovely
was a
Johnny.
lovely guy, and it was at the Flying Dutchman, I think.
Yes, yes.
I think they were Flying Dutchman, or anyway, some show bar in Blackpool.
Everyone meets at the Dutchman late at night, don't they? Yeah.
Well, I think it was that, or it might have been Showboat, or whatever it was. So I saw him, I clocked him, and I started speaking to him, this associate producer, and I said, Des said he was going to have me on the show. I haven't heard anything yet. He said, well, just send a little show reel to me. So I said, I will do. So full name, what's the best way to get into it, all that stuff. Lovely chat. So we put together a video, bits and pieces. Shell edited it, so it was not so much gags, more just Andy Fordisms, quirky, silly, that sort of stuff. Anyway, we sent it, and at the time, and I was a bit depressed after all that had happened the year before, I was reading a book called Louise L. Hay, You Can Heal Your Life.
All right.
One of these self-help books, and there were mantras in it. You keep saying a mantra.
Yeah.
I deserve success. I work hard, therefore I deserve any success. And I kept saying it over and over and over. And one morning, I was in the front room of our digs in Blackpool, looking into the mirror, saying, you're funny, you deserve success. And the phone rang.
Wow.
And it was my manager, and said, are you still funny? I said, I'm hilarious. He said, good, you're on Des O'Connor next week.
Wow.
So the video that we sent to the associate producer, he obviously looked at it and they said, oh yeah, get him on.
Oh,
So
well done.
that happened through, Des liking me and his associate producer. I met Colin Fay and Neil Shand I met, who helped me, offered up some comedy stuff. And Neil Shand has written for everybody, right?
Yes.
So it was a real joy, and I did the the Des O'Connor Tonight Show.
Yes.
That's one. And to be fair, I stormed it. Listen to this, Steve. The lineup. I don't know. Are you sure you should have interviewed me? The lineup was Des O'Connor, Glenda Jackson, Cliff Richard, Shania Twain, Ben Elton, Andy Ford. That's not a bad lineup, is it?
Yeah.
I still got the credits somewhere on video for that.
Oh, that's
and
amazing.
I had an absolute storm. But before I actually got to do the show, Joe Pasquale and Tony Joe from the Grumbleweeds took me out for a meal at Giggy's, the Greek place in Blackpool.
Yeah.
And lovely Joe paid for it as well. And he said, go through your material. Yeah, that's good, mate. Yeah, do that. And he said, yeah, it's all right. It's good. And I said, but it's not what I want to do.
Right.
He said, what? I said, this is the sort of thing I want to do. And I did the garlic crusher thing to him.
Yeah.
And he said, you got to do that, mate. You got to do it. So I put it in the spot.
You did. I remember seeing that on Des. Yeah.
Fantastic. And they edited it to the end of the spot. So it was my finisher. Something as surreal as that. That was my finisher on TV. Because I sort of hid it away halfway through, but they all loved it so much. And every time I went on Des and Des and Mel and did it loads of times, they always wanted poems as well as the gags.
Do you know what, mate? Every time I use my garlic crusher, I make a chili con carne, I always think of you because I never heard of a garlic crusher until I saw you on Des O'Connor doing that routine. So it's, yeah, I think of you. Every time I'm chefing in the kitchen, I think of Andy Ford. And do you know what? The great thing about Des O'Connor was that he was key in launching so many comedy careers. He pushed people like, yeah, Joe Pasquale, Jeffro, Mick Miller, even Freddie Starr, of course. And
Bradley?
And Bradley Walsh, yeah. And he saw that magic in you, which was so nice for him to do that.
Oh, he was so supportive. I went in once to do a Desert Mel.
Yeah.
A couple of quick stories on that. And I was in the dressing room talking through material with Des, and he looked at me, he said, Andy Ford, you're on this show more than I am. And then one day, I'd written this poem about my wife, and I had a cardboard cutout of her, and the gag was that because I'm on the road playing everywhere, I don't get a chance to see her, so I take this cardboard version of her around with me. Anyway, I did the gag, the poem, and it went great. And it went to ad break. So thanks, Des, thanks, Mel, love you, blah blah blah. Walking back with the cardboard cutout under my arm to the green room, and I can't open the door because I got this flipping cartoon cutout, and the door opened sort of automatically for me.
Yeah.
And so I walked through, and this bloke says, "Andy, that was brilliant." I said, "Thanks, mate." I turned around, it was Rod Stewart.
Wow. Nice.
How many parties can I break the ice out with that one?
That's nice, isn't it? It's nice to be acknowledged, isn't it? And you keep reading out those mantras, mate.
Oh, conversational.
And even though the world stopped over a year ago, Andy Ford didn't stop. You just kept on going. We're going to get to just talk about a few of the things you've been doing online over that past year, but Ken Dodd said, and I quote, there are 27 formulas of jokes. Now, I'm sure you've used quite a few of them formulas, but because you've got your own style, I think one of those formulas is designed especially for Andy Ford. Where does your style originate? Was you inspired by anybody comedy-wise?
Everybody, mate.
Everyone, yeah?
I loved them all. The people I grew up watching, Eric and Ernie, I mean, Tommy Cooper. I loved them all. Norman Wisdom.
Yeah.
Norman Wisdom with his physicality and warmth. Lovability is the word.
Yes.
I've always wanted, most comedians want to be loved. And I love, and then when I would lie in bed at night with my little Red Diffusion radio on the windowsill, I'd listen to the light program or whatever it was, pardon me, and they play repeats of the Goon shows.
Oh, nice.
And I just loved it because it meant nothing. And I think that was the surreal bug going out. And programs like, I'm sorry, I haven't a clue. My name is Angus Prune, and I always listen to. I'm sorry, no, I'm sorry. I'll read that again. That was the show. That was Tim Brooke Taylor, Graham Garden, and I think that was a precursor to the goodies and stuff.
Yes, yes.
All that stuff went in. I loved Round the Horn with Kenneth Williams and all that stuff. Because on a Sunday after two-way family favourites, you won't know what I'm talking about here, Stevie, but on the radio, I think it was midday there was two-way family favourites where people that were working in the forces away could send messages to the family at home, and they're playing records, and that was lovely. We always listened to it as a family. And afterwards, there was always a comedy show. It was either Al Reed or the Jimmy Clitheroe show or Ken Dodd or
Eric Sykes.
Whatever. It was always there. So comedy just sort of wrapped itself around me, and all them different influences created what I do, I suppose, a bit of this, bit of that.
Yeah, that's lovely, mate. And you can see it, and you say it about that lovable nature that you have, and you can tell your audience. I've stood at the back of the theatres after I've supported you, at the back of the Bristol Hippodrome, which is, 2,500, and it's always packed when you're there. And I've watched the families laughing, wiping their eyes, rolling backwards and forwards. It's just such a lovely image of audiences laughing at one man just doing your nuances and all of your movements and comedic ways. It's brilliant. It is the lovable factor, and I think it's difficult to from straight off to get somebody to like a comedian. They have to like you to enjoy you, but they actually love you. That's the difference.
Well, what was it Max Miller used to say when he walk on? Give them time to look at the suit.
Yes.
Yeah, throw them a twinkle, then get going. I mean, I used to, Jethro was a really good friend of mine, and I used to watch him sometimes when he worked at a packed audience, say Bournemouth or something, the 3,000 people, whatever it was, big centre, and he'd come out, and they were so excited to see him, he wouldn't actually do any material for ages. They would be laughing their heads off. It's saying, I just want to say before we start, and that's before we even let it start. Even before we let it start, I just want to say this before we start. And he would do before we start for about, it felt like 20 minutes. And the audience are crying, and he hasn't done a gag. He always said to me, he said, Andy, when they're laughing, when they're excited, and you first go on and they're delighted to see you, he said, use that. Don't do all your best material there. Just give them you. Let them see you. Let them love you.
Yeah.
And then when you need the material to keep it going, because no one can concentrate for an hour and a quarter without, going a little bit, so you need the powerful gags to pull them back a bit later. While they're loving you, just give them you.
That's nice advice, that, isn't it? And Jethro really did, and you do. You use your accents really accentuate the comedy, which is really nice. I think accents and comedians from all over the country. I think if they didn't have those certain accents, maybe it wouldn't be as.
I've only got one. I can only do West Country, but because it might be slightly different nowadays. But people used to say to me when I would play around the country that they loved listening to me because it reminded them of holidays and Quality Creek tea.
Yes.
Because their memories were being in the West Country and hearing those sort of accents.
Oh.
And the West Country accent is a wraparound accent. I mean, it's lovely way to learn it. We're nice to hear it in a way. It just feels it's not granite. It's not, and I'm not knocking Scouse or Manchester or anything, or where I live up here in the northeast, but it's a lot more angular, the accent. It comes in, whereas the West Country just backs off and says, well, you can come to me if you like, my love. That's the difference. And then but you can't just use where you're from and expect people to laugh. You've got to infuse that with your own personality. And my accent helps me deliver my gags in my way.
You've merged all this with Panto, and the Panto world has become one of your best friends. You're a British Pantomime Awards winner twice. And so let's talk about Pantomime Andy. You've built up a loyal fan base really over the years with Panto, and extremely hard work has secured your rightful fan base, really, hasn't it? And it's the power that helps sell your shows after Panto finishes. because they get to love you in Panto. So just talk to me a little bit about Panto and what you love about it.
Well, I went to Panto much later than I should have.
Yes.
I mean, I always wanted to do it, and I never got the chance to,
Okay.
really. But I always felt what I did smacked at pantomime. Because it wasn't, it wasn't aggressive. It was warm, and in holiday camps and stuff, I had to make the kids laugh because there were so many of them.
Yes.
So all them skill sets were there waiting. And the thing is, the reason I got it, my first pantomime, was because of, I think it was the big talent show, and someone saw me. No, I did one the year before. Yeah, I had a new manager, and I was doing a touring panto for John Mills, and he brought a panto producer in to see me. My manager did. I think it was on a tour, and we were in Swindon, and he saw me, and he said, "Right, got to have him." And from then on, I did the Bournemouth Pavilion. I did what was the other one? Oh, I did Reading with Michaela Strachan in The Wizard of Oz. I was the Scarecrow.
Yeah.
Not a complete panto, but I was working with actors as well, so a lot of the skills are transferable, and I learned a lot doing that. And then eventually I got a big break and started doing like Croydon and places like that, and I played all over the country. And people say, well, people love you in the West Country, but I had stonkers in Sheffield and Doncaster and London. I don't think it's necessarily just a local thing.
No.
I understand why the people in the West enjoy what I do on panto in Plymouth and Bristol, because I sound like they.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? So I get that, but being a professional comedian, I was in, was it last year or a year before lockdown, I was in Dartford with Steve McFadden, my mate.
Okay.
And I had an absolute stonker there. They loved it. They were all laughing, and they're all, around the corner from Essex, and they got it. So I think if you're warm and you don't offend, and you got funny bones, and you love what you do, and you care about it, then you can do panto anywhere in the country, I feel.
Yeah, definitely. And you play all your favourite characters, Simple Simon, Muddles, Buttons. You love those characters, don't you?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, it suits you.
My favourite is Buttons.
Yes.
Because his heart is broken. And to add that to your armoury in a pantomime is a gift, especially if you do it well. And I remember a couple of ladies I've worked with doing that. One was the lovely Suzanne Shaw at the Bristol Hippodrome. And the scene, I can't go to the ball buttons, they ripped the ticket up, is a really powerful scene, and the only chance I got in the whole piece to be real and emotional.
Yeah.
And, with a gag at the end of it.
Of course.
But it was just, I love that sort of stuff. I love acting. I suppose I'm like any comedian, really. We all think we can act. Comedians
are actors. I think naturally comedians are actors, aren't they? Because you do have to act out jokes and punchlines, and I guess it's almost a natural ability with a comedian.
Well, even if the world's falling around your ears, people don't care.
Yeah.
They just want to laugh. I don't mean they don't care about you. I mean, they don't care about, they've paid money to be made to feel good. And, and that's, and that's your job. And it's a joyous job, and we can't wait to get out. But some nights, because we're, in inverted commas, human, we might be going through bad stuff. But, you can't take that on the stage with you. And that's, I suppose, in a way, spoke to many comedians about it over the years. That's why a lot of comedians die young of heart attacks and stuff, because it's a hell of a roller coaster. I mean, they love you, they hate you, they love you, they hate you.
Adrenaline.
But even when they love you, you still might be going through something else. But I'm not saying poor comedians, because I don't work down a mine shaft. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But when you choose to be a comedian, you have take all sides of it, and it's joyous when it works.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
It's really lonely when it doesn't.
Yeah, and we do have an example of that. And Ian Royce, bless him, and we lost Ian last year, but Ian was on our Heat, on the Big Talent show. Me, you, and Ian were in that same show, so it was very, very heartbreaking, really, that he saw the other side of that. So, but we do have heartbreak, but you can't show it, can you, on stage? It's just one of those.
No, well, the thing
skills.
is, when you're as passionate as not just me, but I think most comedians are. I mean, you're just getting that laughter, but not only getting that laughter, knowing that you've delivered it right to get that laugh is the biggest drug in the world. And when you reach the heights, as someone like Tony Hancock did quite early, and he was like the greatest comedian of all time, and they loved him so much he had to do a new series, and it was so quick and pushed at him, he didn't have time to learn all the words because it was coming like a conveyor belt. So he had boards around the set with his lines on it. You can see him looking. And he got so obsessed with getting it right that at one point, I think I learned this from a Bob Monkhouse book actually, he felt so pressured about what he did and the demands on him that he wanted to drill a hole in his head to release the pressure.
Wow.
And apparently he believed that was a real thing. And of course he went to Australia and took his own life in a hotel room, sadly. And I think of our wonderful Benny Hill, who sat in his own room with a digestive biscuit and a cup of tea, thinking, Thames have taken my TV away, what's the point of being alive? And died of a broken heart. So there's that side of the business. But you can't think of that when you're doing it. You just think of all the good times. But it can take its toll on comedians if you care about it. And that's why I'm a little bit jealous of the comedians that think it's the easiest job in the world because they've had some TV success early on. And they're great. And they keep going. And I'm mentioning no names.
Sure.
And I'm thinking, but you don't have the scars. But maybe that's the way forward. You don't have to have comedian scars to be successful anymore.
No, not at all. But
am I getting too profound, mate?
No, I love profoundness, mate. It makes it, it makes it profound, doesn't it?
They said deeply.
Oh, bless you for that. I mean, we do have scars. We don't know what, people don't know what's behind my dummy. Do you know what I mean? I know my hand is, but you still have to cover that sadness of that day, or somebody passing away, or you've had bad news. You go out there and you still have to earn money to feed the family. So it's, we all go through it at some time.
Eyes and teeth.
You've not just got Andy Ford the character. I'd like to talk about some other character or a new show that you've put out there called Adge Cutler. I've probably said his name wrong. You could help me correct that. But Adge
that's
Cutler,
completely correct.
is he
Adge
fictional?
Cutler when I was growing up in Exeter,
Yes.
he was a West Country icon.
Oh, so he's not fictional. He's real.
He was the starter of the Wurzels. It was Adge Cutler and the Wurzels.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and the whole story, we do the whole story in the comedy musical about, trying to get a break.
Yes.
And eventually walked into this guy's office in Bristol and said, I've written these songs for West Country people when I want to sing in a West Country style and put a band behind me, and it'll be funny and jolly, and I think it's worth doing. And this guy said, all right, let's give it a go. And that guy was John Miles. And
Okay.
he's my manager as well now.
Oh, wow.
But Adge Cutler was getting all the success with the Wurzels Drink Up Thy Cider, and then he did a gig on May the 4th, 1974, at the Crystal Room in Hereford with his band, and ripped it, and was driving home, and in the early hours of May the 5th, and hit a roundabout just near the Severn Bridge, and it was a soft-topped sports car, and went in the air, threw him out, and landed on top of him. And it was all over. He was just about to go to Canada on a tour and be international. He'd just done a series in the West Country called Great Western Musical Thunderbox. It was all going massive for him, and he died. So John Miles then had a meeting the week after with the remaining Wurzels and said, "Do you want to carry on as a tribute to Adge?" And within 2 years, they had a #1 hit with Combine Harvester. So it's a hell of a story, and I get to play Adge Cutler in this play. And it's a comedy musical, but we actually do the death scene as well.
Do you? Oh, amazing. So who come up with the concept of the musical, Andy? Did you help write it? Did you have any creative input?
A guy called Neil Maggs wrote it.
Okay.
And I looked at it, and it was, he'd written it with passion because he loves Adge Cutler, but he doesn't know showbiz, so it was too long, it was too wordy, and I said, "Look, I love Adge Cutler. I'd be interested in doing this, but you'd have to let me rewrite it." So I rewrote it, and we did it in 2017, and it was a massive success. And he's asked me to bring it back, and I said, "Well, I don't want to bring it back exactly the same. Well, obviously, all the Adge Cutler songs will be in it, because that's what people want to hear." But I said, if we're going to make this a musical, I want to write a few songs about his life. So I've actually written 4 original songs about Adge Cutler and his journey that fit into the show around his own songs. So we're just not extending it, but putting more meat on the musical bones, really.
Yeah, it's fantastic, mate. Good luck with that. I love it. And if I'm down that way, I need to come and see that. I worked with the Wurzels once in '94. They came to my holiday park where I was a coat, and I was like 18 years old. I got a picture of me and the lads. I think I posted it on Twitter to you.
I've seen it, yeah. It's
Yeah.
Tommy and Pete, lovely guys.
Yeah, they were so lovely to, a little budding ventriloquist, and they all had their pints. Lager, I think, not cider. But it was, and I grew up watching them. My dad loved them. My dad was a farmer, so he was into all that, My dad's from Andover, Basingstoke, but all my family are from Andover and farming land, so we're kind of not far from Somerset and the accent.
Well, yeah, I mean, you can still, there's a twang in the accent of people in Hampshire and stuff. In fact,
yes.
I would say the Norfolk accent is not a million miles away from West Country either. So there's a lot of southern Britain that sounds a bit like I.
It's strange, isn't it? How Norfolk, maybe Suffolk, sound a bit like the Somerset accent. It's strange how far apart they are, like 3 or 4 hours.
The difference is in Norfolk, it sounds like they're singing in a West Country accent. So instead of saying, "I think I might go to shop there, boy," they go, "Oh, I think I might go to shop there, boy." and it has a tune.
Yeah, no, it does.
Beautiful. I love accents. I'm obsessed. And when I toured with lots of different shows and playing around the country, as you go from area to area, I always find it fascinating that in the West, in Cornwall, it's "all right, my answer." And you go to Devon and it becomes "all right, lover." And you go up to Bristol and it comes "all right, my babber." And you go up to the Midlands and it becomes "all right, babs." You go up a bit further and it's like "all right, my duck." A bit further still and it's "you're right, hen." And then, pet, isn't it? Newcastle area, first pet.
Yeah.
Then to Scotland and it's hen. And it goes from handsome to hen. And it just varies as you go through the country. And it's so beautiful and so strong for our national identity that we've got all this regionality.
Yeah, I love it. I love that about our country. It's a wonderful thing, You go to a different town and do a different theatre and all your audiences are all speaking different. When I done my tour in 2014, I loved to go, I went to Cornwall, up to Scotland, and in between I'm in Birmingham, and all the audiences, when you meet them afterwards, they're all speaking different languages. You think, wow, I'm in a different part of the country, and they're enjoying what I'm doing, like you say about. It's
it's really interesting, and that's why I say people are people wherever they are.
Oh,
and
course.
If you're a funny, warm comedian with funny bones and in panto getting a pie in the face, that's funny in Scotland, Birmingham, London, or Truro. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, of course. Ken Dodd famously said, "You can do a joke in Liverpool, and they won't get it in London because they can't hear it."
Isn't that beautiful?
I love that line. Yeah.
Tommy Cooper once did a routine about Al Jolson in the old days.
Right.
Have you heard of Al Jolson, Steve?
I know of him. Yes.
Yeah, well, so he was the singing personality guy in the 40s and stuff.
Yeah.
Tommy Cooper on stage, he said, in those days, you had wonderful singers like Al Jolson who'd sing, how I love you, how I love you. He said, no microphones in those days, mind you. He said, people would stand at the back of theatres and shout out things like, Ow, we can't hear you. Isn't that beautiful? And that's my love of comedy, because he didn't say they didn't need microphones in those days.
Yes.
He implied they didn't need microphones in those days, but he said, no microphones in those days, you know. So the way he said it suggested something else that made the joke work.
Yeah,
but
clever.
He was not unfaithful to the gag, because when the tag happens, you realise that he'd set it up in that way. I'm going deep again, but
it's brilliant.
So much. I love comedy when I hear it. That's why I suppose when comedians hear a great joke and it drives other people crazy.
Yeah,
so when
yeah.
a comedian has done another comedian a joke and it's hilarious, and when they hear it, the other comic will go, nice. Because we analyse it rather than enjoy it. We know how to make people enjoy it, but when we hear it for the first time, we just want to pull it apart and see why it works.
I know it's funny, isn't it? You tell your mate a joke and you go, that's funny. Yeah. Or I'll have that. Or can I have that? You know, they don't laugh, do they? They just go, oh, brilliant. Love that. They do analyse straight away. My wife, Nina, does it actually. She says, oh, can't you do it like this? Instead of laughing at the joke, she analyses it, and because she knows my comedy, you know, and she knows, oh, yeah, like Michelle with you, you know, and they see that in you, and they kind of want you to tell it right, you know. So, it's very clever.
Because of my love of all that stuff, I started. I've got an online course called Confidence Through Comedy.
Yes.
And basically, it's telling people where to find the funny, how to deliver the funny, how to write the funny, and but not for stage, how to use it in just a social situation. Because some people, like, they go down to the pub and there's their mate who everyone laughs at, and he's the centre of attention. They sit in the corner like a wallflower.
Yeah.
And just to help people bring that out. I mean, if you're sitting around in a pub and you've got this brilliant gag you've just heard about football, and they're all talking about food, and you can't get in, you can learn how to turn the conversation around to make what you're saying relevant.
That's clever.
So and they do good food at this pub, I know I love to go out for a proper meal sometimes, though. And if I'm not over hungry, I'll just have a snack, maybe a pasty. We used to have pasties at Exeter City, where I used to go there on a Saturday.
Yeah.
I'll never forget this day. You're in. You're
clever.
turning the conversation from talking about food to talking about the subject matter that you want to deliver on.
That's lovely. So, where can people listen to this? Because it's your online course, confidencethroughcomedy.com. They'll find you there, and you're helping people.
I think you can buy the whole course.
That's amazing.
There's loads of practicing, talking to yourself without hesitation and all that stuff.
This is.
You can. Go to confidencethroughcomedy.com, and then there's links to buy it. I think it's with Udemy, and you just buy the course for about 25 quid or something, and you can sit and learn, not everything. I'm not a all-knowing oracle, but I give you my advice on that, how to make things funny, really.
Yeah, no, the advice is very important. There was somebody that's been there for 30, 40 years doing comedy live on stage, but even if somebody just wants to be a best man and they need to know how to deliver a joke or get the confidence to actually do, because
it's all that stuff, really. And
brilliant.
By the way, this year is my 52nd year as a paid performer.
Oh, well, since your 12th birthday, so that's...
Well, we've gone from that thing that we said earlier, it started at the age of 12.
Yeah.
And I was 64 last month.
Oh, bless you. You were singing that Beatles song, When I'm 64. You can't sing that no more, can you?
Well, I was thinking about it the other day, and I was singing it, and I thought, how times have changed. Because in those days, 64 felt really old. You know, they say 60 is the new 40.
Yes.
When I was listening to the lyrics, losing all my hair and all that lot, and I thought, well, I'm not ready for all that yet. Thank you very much. I want to get out there and work and do the stuff. You know, yes, I ache slightly more than I used to, but, you know, I still love it. When you've got a passion for what you do, like we have, Steve, I think it helps keep you young.
It does keep you young, doesn't it? Because you travel around the world and you're driving, you're laughing. Laughter is the best medicine. They say that, Andy, don't they? And it's what
Unless you're asthmatic, then ventilating's a lot more sensible.
It is. But in these crazy COVID times, us entertainers, we either shut down, a lot of us have shut down, or we get creative. And I know that I have tried to be as creative as possible, and you have as well. You started the Andy Ford Live on Sundays, and you put on so many shows, but you just entertained, and you got people watching, and you've done like an hour every. I think you've done about 7 live shows, didn't you, in your living room?
I did 10 live stand-up shows.
10.
I loved it because I never repeated a gag, so it pushed me, Steve, so that was good.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's a question of holding your nerve, trusting that people are laughing because you can't hear it.
Yeah.
So I did 10 weeks of that, and that was exhausting, but lovely, rewarding, great feedback from people.
Yeah.
And then I thought, well, other people who are in the same situation as me, they can't work, they must be frustrated. So I asked all my friends like you to send me a video of them performing either at home or something they'd done in the past, and I put together variety shows.
That was nice as well. That was another nice idea. Really
yeah,
good.
and I did that for, 8 of them.
Wow.
And then I was luckily one of the only few people to do pantomime last year, so that took up, you know, sort of the wintry bit.
Yeah.
And then now we're back into lockdown after Panto. I started doing these happy chats because the world's getting too depressing, and we turn the news on, and everything's negative. Even with this stuff, I don't know when you're going to put this out, but at the moment there's a thing with Meghan Markle and Harry interview, and everything is negative. And I just
Sad,
get
isn't it?
fed up with negativity because it's not good for anyone.
No, it's not.
So
No.
I wanted to call it Happy Chat, and I speak to my friends, ask them how they're getting on, talk about the business like we're doing now, and we don't go down the dark alleys in the show.
No,
you
no,
can't
it's so
avoid
nice.
saying, you know, my dad died last year, or whatever you need to say, but you know, then you talk about the treasured memory. So everything is up. That's the whole idea of the show. And I had a fantastic conversation only yesterday with Conor McIntyre from Coronation Street. That's going out very soon. And tomorrow I'm interviewing Pauline Daniels, wonderful comedian from Liverpool.
Yeah.
And you've done it for me as well, mate.
I loved it, mate. Yeah. And Billy Pearce, Les Dennis, wonderful. I love the Happy Chat. It's brilliant. It's such a nice idea. And you really are cheering people up, mate. And we're kind of giving back, you know. We can't work. We can't go out there and earn. But you're still entertaining, and it's so nice for you to be giving that to people. And hopefully those people you have entertained will come out now and buy tickets when you're back out there on tour.
You just hope, don't you? But you know, it's not ever done for that reason.
No.
It's done because I want to perform, and you know, I've got to have a reason to be me. And you know, and I'm not saying without the business I'm nothing, because I've got the best wife in the world, wonderful kids and grandkids, and my parents are still with me, and you know, although we're in lockdown, life's pretty good, and that is important stuff. But Andy Ford as a performer is a massive part of my life, so I have to perform. I have to.
Yeah, and if people can't see you performing and they're waiting for your next live show on Facebook or Happy Chat show, they can go to your website at www.andyfordcomedian.com and buy your CDs and DVDs. And you've also got this wonderful thing. You mentioned it earlier, Ollie the Otter. Is that a book, a children's series of books that you wrote?
Well, I wrote it, but it was in the days when I would put them on cassette, so that each cassette would have 2 stories and 4 Ollie the Otter songs. Because, see, that's the other thing, Steve. We utilise everything we've learned. And, you
Yeah.
know, the music, the early days for me was music. So I learned tunes and I learned comedy and words, and I'd put tunes and words together and write stories. And I've always felt artistic, really.
Yeah.
You know, I just feel like I can do it. Sometimes foolishly thinking I can do everything as well as someone that's trained at it forever. At the moment, I love doing my video editing. I just adore it.
Yeah.
But that's artistic as well. You know, you see the image when you merge a couple of videos together and do a transition and you see them come together. You know, I've started offering up performers show reels for them because when it gets going again,
Wow.
they're going to need something to put in front of agents.
Yeah, agents
So,
are asking for mine now.
I'm thinking I can do that. I can put that together, charge a reasonable price, and then when we're getting ready to open up, people can just send their show reels to agents, and they'll be first in line. So, you know, that's another thing I do. I've got to do stuff, Steve.
Yeah,
I'm a
of course you
doer.
are. You are a doer, mate, and you're doing so well. And we love you for it, Andy. I'm a big fan of yours, mate, and I'm so glad that we're mates because we, you know, you sort of help each other out over the years, you know. But I really,
I love your comedy, Steve. I love your timing. I love watching you because you don't do what other people do. You don't just do the jokes. You do the stuff that you pull from the inside out. That's the stuff that makes you laugh. And, you know, having success like you did on Britain's Got Talent is... I mean, a lot of people have success on these programs and fade away, but you've used that as a stepping stone, and you're just getting funnier and funnier as you get older, mate.
oh bless you. So when bits start falling down and stuff, you can use that, can't you? So, Andy, it's been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much for doing this. I'd like to thank Andy for being on Eyes and Teeth. Andy from the Osmonds, you've been a pleasure to talk to. I give my love to Michelle and the family. You're wonderful. Get back out there and do it. And I hope you're doing Panto this year. Have you heard any news?
Yeah, I'm doing Panto. I can't say where.
Sure.
I'm very, very excited about it.
Fantastic. Oh, all the best for that. I had an offer last week, so I'm keeping my my lips sealed, which these ventriloquists do anyway. So I want to go back to Panto. I've not done it for 5 years, so that would be great. And so,
You'll be awesome in it, mate.
wow, I can't wait. It's nice that we're looking at the end of the tunnel, isn't it now? And it's what we want.
Yeah, I've got to be ready. So any of your lovely listeners who want their show reels, you know where I is.
I do know where you is, and I think I may need a show reel, so I'll be giving you a text pretty soon. Andy Ford, thanks for being on the show.
I love you, mate. It was a pleasure, and thank you so much for what you do in doing these wonderful podcasts to entertain people as well. Love you, and I'll speak to you real soon.
Oh, bless you. Thank you, Andy.
Bye, mate.
Eyes and Teeth.
Thanks so much to Andy. And to see where, what and who he is playing next, check him out on Facebook, Andy Ford Comedian, on Twitter, @AndyFordLive, and buy his DVDs via www.andyfordcomedian.com. Today's comedy quote comes from Jethro.
A guy walks into a fish and chip shop with a card under his arm, see? And do you sell fish cakes? And the chip shop guy says, no, sorry, I don't sell fish cakes. He does not sell the fish cakes. He does not sell fish cakes. Shame that. It's his birthday today.
That's my attempt at Jethro.
I've been out drinking till 4:15 in the morning. There's the wife waiting on the doorstep with a broom. She didn't seem like when I asked her, you late finishing cleaning or you going for a flight? At Christmas I bought her a car. And she said, that's no good to me. I want something that would go from 0 to 160 in 3 seconds. So I bought her some bathroom scales.
Thanks, Jethro. He's got no quotes, but I thought I'd read some of his gags. Funny man. Eyes and Teeth is written, produced and hosted by Steve Hewlett. Vocals by Lola, Larissa and Nina Hewlett. Additional vocals by Rich T. The Eyes and Teeth theme music and jingles are all produced by Kevin Dean and performed by Kevin Dean. Cosmic. Check us out next time on Eyes and Teeth, Funny for Money, when I'll be chatting to a brilliant stand-up comedian that stands out. It's Phil Reed.